Now we have to see cross-pollination in detail, and when we see cross-pollination in detail, let us recall what were the different names of this particular condition. One was xenogamy, other was allogamy, and as the name suggests, if we can break xenogamy, gamy means fusion and xeno means strange. So we are going to see two genetically different flowers interacting with each other and leading to fertilization. So the agency of fertilization could be wind, water and animals. We are going to see each agency one by one, and we are going to see what happens in cross pollination, though we have discussed it earlier as well, that in cross pollination it is the pollen grains coming in contact with the ovary or the stigma of another flower, and the agency that comes in between, according to that we name that type of pollination. So the first one is anemophily. The three different agencies that we study under our syllabus are, first one being wind, the second one being water, and the third one being animals. Alright, so over here we are going to see wind pollination, that how wind assists in pollinating a flower, that means carrying away the pollen from the anther and taking it to the stigma. So we have to study the few characteristics that a flower is going to possess in order to enable anemophily, and that would be all that we have to study in this, because definition is simple, that the pollination which takes place with the agency of wind happens to be anemophily, and these are the characteristics that have to be those which have to be studied, and these are to be learnt as well. So simply seeing what all is written, we are going to discuss about it. What would be the characteristics of a flower which has to undergo anemophily? First thing is that the flowers would be small in size and they would be inconspicuous. When we talk about a flower, do keep in mind that we are considering the inflorescence over here. So the small flowers are going to be present in a compact inflorescence. They would be small and inconspicuous, because wind pollination, wind is not going to get attracted to the flower's colors or its shape. So it's no point of making a bright and beautiful flower by the plant. So the plants prefer a small and inconspicuous flower arrangement on the inflorescence itself. The non-essential parts are absent or reduced. Now considering the structure of a flower, the two parts were non-essential, that happened to be the calyx and corolla. So the flower prefers either they should be absent or they should be highly reduced, because mostly, or I would say preferentially, the gynoecium and androecium part of the flower is needed. And the next characteristic is, because the flower has not is not having the liability of attracting the insect towards itself, because its dependence is on wind, which is an abiotic factor. So the flowers are usually colorless, they are odorless and they are nectarless. So all the characteristics which are required for attracting an insect or an animal are almost absent. Now in case the flower is unisexual, male flowers are abundant, that means numerous male flowers would be present, and in case the flower is bisexual, that means male and female both are present in the same flower, the preference would be again towards the male parts. That means there would be lot many stamens which would be present in comparison to the female part, carpels. Okay. Then moving further, inside this more abundant male part, that is the anther, pollen grains are formed, and because it is the pollen which has to be carried away by the wind to the stigma, what are the characteristics that a pollen has? First of all, you have a term known as gunpowder mechanism. Now what is this gunpowder mechanism? It is the spontaneous and quick bursting of the anther, which bursts as if it is some sort of blast that is taking place, minute blast, and the pollens are thrown into air. Okay, numerous pollens are thrown into air. Now what would be the characteristics of the pollens which would be thrown into the air? First is that they should be dry and unwettable. Second is that they should be light, small and dusty, and because it is related to wind, often winged pollens are generated, and the best example for winged pollens is Pinus. Okay, Pinus gives rise to winged pollens. You must have seen few pollens like this. like this, hairy pollens, winged pollens, which fly in the air. They are nothing but the pollen grains of an anemophilous flower. Now coming to the stigma. Stigma is hairy and feathery. It is often branched, and do keep in mind, because this process involves wind, because the wind is going to carry away the pollens passively, they would be carried away passively. Anemophily is highly wasteful in terms of pollens. So whichever flower takes this method, adopts this method for cross-pollination, prefers to produce lot of pollen grains, large number of pollen grains. Secondly, in order to enable the best usage of this agency, the stigma or the inflorescence is such that all the female flowers, they are either moved outwards, that means they are not highly would not be well exposed, they are well exposed, and they are having a compact inflorescence, so that supposedly a wing pollen is coming over here, it happens to be this part, that is the stigma, wing pollen goes from here, so this would be wasteful. But if I have such an arrangement that I have 7 to 8 stigmas over here, so the wing pollen is coming, and because of the arrangement where we have a cluttered arrangement of female part, the pollen would come and settle down on one or other stigma, and that would make the process less wasteful. So these are the few adaptations which the plants undergo, or which the plant takes in its course, so that the process of pollination takes place and it becomes less wasteful. The few examples that we have, in case you don't remember any example, you just have to keep in mind that most of the grasses, okay, monocots, they undertake this type of pollination, that is anemophily. The second example, if you can't remember anything, the second one is pinus. As I told you, it is having winged pollen, so we have pinus. We have cannabis, which is often abused for drugs, in the form of drugs. Then we have coconut, we have maize. These are the few examples. You can increase your ambit of learning the examples. You can see a few more if you want to, but 4 would be enough in case you are preparing from exam point of view. So this is all about anemophily.